So I understood the great loss that had to take place to be able to take the steps, right, to do this video that you're watching now with such great sacrifice that it cost me my life here on earth, that it put me in a position that to where I was so far from what I described prior was this rational scope, that it's saying, look, you can walk this this pathway and you can see the hills and the valleys, but if you go off this path, right, if you go off the path, you will not be able to just get right back on, because you are within the construct of a movement toward um, a rational physical scope. In other words, you're transitioning the ether, the aether, the plasma, the gas, the liquid, and you're saying, I live in what is assumably a hardened state of a physical world, right? And when you transition yourself back out into these more mercurial processes that become ever more pervading into all of these uh, abstract concepts, right? That is the same. Like there's that concept of, we call something a quark, right? Neutrino. We refer to something as an electron or a proton or a neutron, but really, aren't these just different transitional states, right? Where you could almost say, like the pantheon, that we are playing these various roles, right? And that it is the same. So it kind of gets into Jason Riza Giorgiani. But when I think of Jason Riza Giorgiani, and I'm not trying to get heretical or infer anything like this, but I am because of the fact that you have Neil, who with Gnostic Informant, who used to be extremely argumentative, right? He would, like, I remember him in this interview with Ralph Ellis, who really isn't, in my opinion, he's not trying to sour the Christian water. He's saying, let's look at this in a practical sense, But then, like Jesus and the existence, King Isis, and so forth, and then because of assumable inaccuracies, um, Neil was extremely confrontational, but he was doing so as a frustration to there's nobody else to really talk about. So I'm going to bang against the head of this assumed expert, right? And even Ralph Ellis, I think, is kind of going, if there's more information out there, I'm open to it. I want more information, right? But the thing is that you're asking information to come from sort of an etheric place and to transition into a material place, and thereby you're giving it an approximation or a location, right? And that's extremely dangerous. And that's something that is still going to be considered esoteric and arcane. In fact, when you get into these areas, you have to then start to say this is pseudoscience, right? And then the issue here is that pseudosciences are becoming an actual mainstream scientific process. And I never thought I would see the day. In fact, like they say, I rue the day. Right? Really, I full on regretted the day that is today, this time that we're in, that anybody would ever take a second look at my blog and the things that I was going through. Because there is this, when you transition from one state to the other, one state of mind to the other, and you realize that your consciousness can go anywhere that it wants to go, right? And that from the Master Key System by Charles F. Haanel, that if you do go into these sort of nebulous clouds of distinction, right, and then you transition back into, you're supposing yourself to transition from this mercurial state into this back into this solidified material state, that you are now a practitioner. You are trying to take information from the aether and you are saying, now I have advantage. But what you're not seeing initially is that you are they're then entered into others that consider themselves practitioners and they're doing the same thing. And that's when things start to get very effed up, but very murky, right? Because you have no idea what you're even doing. You started to use a process in your mind, right? That's something else, and this makes, I will say it, it makes Nathaniel Gillis's work, even though he tries to name it and he's trying to name a process, necronetics, right? Is that you can't franchise on this, man. Like you're doing exactly what I'm talking about. Is you're going, and I've battled with this process my whole life, is the fact that you cannot say that these. I'm going to say it. There's more than 5 states of matter, right? And the aether is beyond the plasma, right? It's beyond. It exists in a state beyond hot and cold, right? But when we experience it, we may experience something that is very hot or very cold, and there are. You could almost say that there may have been a hacking into to utilize this aether through technological means. In other words, that technology itself could be used to use such a thing as assumable dark matter, which probably gets into further states, right? And through probabilistic quantum process, right? Doesn't say this is the exact way we're going, or this is the answer to your query, the answer to your question is. It stays in this postulate position where it now refines itself down to it takes everything and then it removes large numbers of possibilities and probabilities that are merely matching a shape or a form, a symbol, if you will. And so when the power or the lack thereof of using something in your mind that you are thinking about, that you've been conjured into, this gets into Nathaniel Gillis, like you thought that you had an original presupposition that just came to you that I'm going to think about the inverted pentagram today. Wow, some sort of idea is coming in as what if I draw each point to that pentagram in my mind and then I draw a circle around it? Do you think that that is an original idea of yours? Or do you think that you're opening yourself up to a mimetic chain that was pre-existent, that you are now putting yourself in line with it? Now you have to realize that you either have to take the thought up to a higher status or a higher state and so we get lost in discovery. We get lost